Hello everyone and welcome back to another Getting Stuff Painted by bi-weekly update, give or take, on the various miniatures I've been painting for the games we cover here on the channel. I think we actually are spot on 2 weeks this time. We only have 2 games to cover this week, but there is a lot of miniatures here. So we have 4 miniatures from Marvel Crisis Protocol, and then everything else is from the Batman miniature game, majority of which is specifically the Scarecrow crew, the Scarecrow box plus the separate leader. But a story to tell about that model, and as always painted or based in Grey Seer, painted 90% with contrast paints with a few washes and other paints included. And specifically this time as well, I had 2 leftover contrast paints I've never used yet, and it was from the newer contrast colours that Citadel released. It was 2 shades of green. One of them was called Mantis Warrior Green, I believe, which is what I used on Immortal Hulk that we'll talk more about in a second, and the other one was Eldari Emerald, which is what I used for the bases for all the Scarecrow stuff to try and match up to the official paint job colour. Talk more about that as well as we talk about them, but as always we'll go from left to right, in between throwing toys for my very confused dog. So I'll move the camera down a little bit as well. You know what, let's talk about the big guy first, because this is my favourite sculpt that AMG have done for a while now. Immortal Hulk, really cool looking. You can tell he's just smashed down and he's in the process of mid-bouncing on something else as well. Just really fun miniature, really detailed. Love the pose, love how action pose it looks without being ridiculous, without wobbly model syndrome. It's really cleverly put together, and during the assembly process actually, like, this looks like a pretty basic base, but it's actually very intricately slotted together to make it sturdy, which I really appreciate. So let me just turn my viewfinder here because I am getting some weird glare that I hope you're not getting. There we go. So as I was mentioning, I used one of the 2 new, oh, they're not new anymore at this point, but they're new to me because I hadn't used them. I used Mantis Warrior Green as the base coat here because I wanted this Hulk to look a little bit different to the original Hulk in terms of, I used Warp Lightning for the original Hulk back when he released. Because the pictures of Immortal Hulk I found when I kind of googled what he looked like in the comics, he was always paler than normal comic book Hulk, not as kind of pale as MCU Hulk, but still pale. So I wanted a not as dark, vibrant green, or not as deep, I guess, because I did go for a vibrant colour. I also still dry brushed a little bit of moot green over the top just because I wanted to add a bit of definition to try and distract from any blotchiness on him. I used a little bit of, what is that bright? Striking Scorpion Green for his eyes, Volupus Pink for his tongue, and a Luxian Purple for his pants. I think it was Luxian, and that's just the base coat with a wash over the top for his torn shirt there. But yeah, this is a case of where the model does most of the work, which is fine by me, honestly, because it makes it look better than it otherwise is. I did use a little bit of Bautan Green in the recesses of his muscle lines, just to darken them a little bit. I used Skeletal Horde for the dirt parts underneath the concrete. Concrete, as always, Basilicanum Grey, and some Storm Vermin fur over the top after a dosing of Agrat's Earthshade, just to give it kind of that dirty look, and then going over it to make it look a little bit neater. For the parking mirror, I guess this is, to try and match up the official paint job colour, I used Fire Slayer Flesh because that was the kind of the colour it looked like to me in the official paint job, and I think it matched up pretty well, honestly. So that is the Immortal Hulk. He's been in one battle report already. He seems a bit too powerful to me, but really great miniature. And yeah, I don't think they can balance 7 threat characters well for the game in general, unfortunately. Well, let's go on. So the Emma Frost and Psylocke box. Emma Frost was actually the most recent thing painted here, and I'm not very happy with either of them, so let's just cover these real quick because it's basically just the base coat and then Soul Blight something or other it's called over the top to give a little bit of definition to the white. I don't know how to paint white to make it look good. I have no clue at all, so it didn't happen here. Nazdrag Yellow for the Hellfire Club logo on her base, Gulliman Flesh for her basic skin tone, and Skeletal Horde for her light blonde, what is that called, strawberry blonde, I'm not sure, hair. And then for her diamond form it was Frostheart. Look at me remembering the name of that blue. I've ended up using that Frostheart Citadel contrast paint a lot, so that's why it's now sticky in my head. This is not coming into focus. Is it because her skin's blue? There we go. And I tried to edge highlight a little bit with just some Grey Seers, but again, I don't know how to paint diamond skin. So, you know. Oh, I should also point out, in case it isn't obvious, have you spotted the problem? She is missing her thumb and one of her fingers in the hand she is stretched up into the air. And that is because I've not been having any luck with breaking miniatures apparently, but I was just getting her to my painting table. She fell forwards, just like of her own weight. She just kind of bounced on the ground like that, or off the table like that. Broke the fingers off. So I think obviously I shouldn't have dropped her, but I think the fingers were a little fragile and they just clean snapped off, and they're so small I can't find them. So you know what, I'm fine with this one not being in focus, kind of, because it is now broken. It's hard to tell at a glance, like I'm sure nobody spotted it really beforehand, but still kind of annoying. Well, not that you see her diamond form that often, like she changes back from diamond form at the end of her turns anyway. Alright, so last on the list for Marvel Crisis Protocol is Cyanog. This one turned out a little bit better, I think, which is kind of surprising because it's a lot more intricate than Emma Frost is, to be honest. I also hope that that is in focus. There we go, I believe it is now. So that is a little bit of, I believe it was Talisar Blue. It might not be, it might be the Elven related one that I'm now blanking on the name of because I keep on wanting to say Eldari Emerald to keep that in my mind for talking about later. For the psionic construct on her hand, I mixed together a bunch of colours, honestly. I ended up using just a standard Citadel Silver over the purple or pink over the top. Not really happy with it, but couldn't quite get it to look like I wanted. That's Leviathan purple for her hair, and the Sigvald Burgundy, whatever it's called, the creepy Slanesh guy for the tassel or belt, I guess. And then she's sitting on a broken sentinel, so I just used the colours I used for them in this series again on them here, and did the usual stuff for this the contrast base. It's early in the morning, the Crisis Protocol base. I should not record these so early in the morning. Not that I would do much better later in the day, but you know, still. Overall, it turned out okay. She has a lot of like straps and whatnot, so it's hard to get the detail in. I also had a couple of unfortunate mold lines that, with hindsight, I hadn't realised they were so prominent. Like on this shoulder blade, I would have gotten rid of, or tried my best to cover up, maybe with like liquid green stuff, but noticed too late, and it was done by then. So not ideal, but still turned out better than I was expecting. Especially based on, like, again, I kind of poked fun at this when I did the unboxing for this. The official paint job of her face looks bad. Not bad in terms of poorly painted, just makes her look weird. It makes her look like Kate Mulgrew, and the model is not sculpted like that. So I don't know what happened with the paint job, but the official paint job on her face is weird. And it isn't because of the sculpt, as it turns out, because if you're just using a contrast paint over it, it looks perfectly normal. So before we deep delve into all the Scarecrow stuff, I did paint up the Street Jesters for Joker's crew. I didn't pick these up at release. I picked them up after the fact from a third-party retailer just to get them, I turned very scholars there, to get them for a bit of a more reasonable price. I wasn't too fussed about them because Joker has plenty of henchmen to choose from. Not that they're not bad or good, I think they are actually pretty decent. More so silly in a couple of cases, but one of them especially, the double katana guy, he could potentially be a really threatening beatstick if he lives long enough to actually attack someone. But let's start with this guy. This guy kind of reminded me from the henchman in one of the Burton movies. So our little friend here, who has a lot of HP but has a chance, a 1 in 6 chance every time he's hit to explode and kill himself. He is a lot of Gilliman flesh. That is some Blood Angels red. No, in fact, no, it wasn't Blood Angels red. It was Baal red on the striped pants, Luxian purple, and some. Ooh, what did I use for his jacket? I don't quite remember. Oh, I think that might be. Oh, what's the name of the contrast paint? Storm something. Storm something. The kind of crystally darkish blue. I'm blanking on what it's called. I don't use it that much, but it's kind of like a darker denim color. That's not what it's meant for, but if I was to describe it to someone, I would say it's a darker denim color. So he's pretty neat. He is fun. The official paint job for this has like a bunch of tattoos on his stomach and things like that. I wasn't going to risk trying to ruin him by trying to do that. So he's just got his fat beer belly, and that's it. Speaking of not trying to ruin things, this guy and the double katana guy, the official paint jobs, they don't have splotches on their clothing. They have stars. From painting the Harley Quinn crew, the newer releases for Birds of Prey, I have learned that I can't do like painted stars. I can't, so I opted instead. Is this in focus? I really hope it is. There we go. I opted instead just to do splotches of yellow instead of trying to make them look like stars. There was the Leviathan purple for his jacket, and his kind of under jacket and hoodie was, ooh, I think that is the other blue, not Talisker blue, the darker one. Osherman blue, or Asterman blue, however you pronounce his name. That was it. That was the one I was blanking on. There we go. I knew I'd get there in the end. This one was a bit annoying put together, honestly. I had to do a lot of cleanup on him, and still haven't perfectly done it, because I can see like a mold line there that I've missed. But cleaning up knight models can be very laborious, very tedious, and sometimes futile. So I settled for it. He's in a slightly different pose than I believe he's supposed to be. I think he's meant to be more kind of leaning back, but I didn't like how that kind of made him side heavy, so I kind of balanced him out like that instead. And so he's filling the base more aptly without being, you know, knocking anyone over or anything like that. Double katana guy was super simple. This was my first test for Hulk, because Hulk had arrived by the point I was trying to paint this guy, so I thought, you know what, I'll try that green, the Mantis Warrior green, on his jacket, because I want to see what it looks like, and then I'll do that as a dry run for whether or not I want to use it on Hulk. I settled on yes. Hindsight, for him it doesn't really match up to the official paint job. I think I should have just used Militarum green to do the full proper military camo, and then did splotches of a darker green. Like, I think I used Militarum green for the splotches. I should have used that for the base color, and then done splotches of like snakebite leather and warp lightning to do like the full like stereotypical military camo, which is what he's meant to be wearing. Luxing purple for his shirt, again with the yellow splotches as opposed to the stars. And that is the other blue I can't remember the name of. Storm Sentinel? I don't think that's it. It's something like that though. For the Joker hair on all of them, I just used the Striking Scorpion green, the very nice bright new contrast green. There's the back of them. The katanas didn't go on super smooth when I was putting them together, unfortunately, but that's okay. He's very tall, this guy. For some reason, he is very tall. The last lady, also in a very awkward pose, very annoying to put together, and she's just kind of like bouncing, and the camera's going to struggle with this one, trust me. Let's see, there we go, kind of. Try and get my hand moved now so it doesn't catch the shadow of the camera. But yeah, she's just chucking like a gas launcher or getting ready to fire it anyway, and she's kind of mid-hop, and the pose was awkward, and the sculpt was not going together very well in this instance. I didn't have fun assembling this one. She's also meant to have a striped shirt on underneath the jacket she's wearing. Tried that, it kind of almost worked, sort of. So and to basically use the same color scheme for her as the others I just talked about, with the reds, the purples, the greens, and the shorts, just so they all kind of match a theme, because they all go together in the game. Not just because they're in the same crew, but because they're from the same theme. That's enough about them. You know what, that's enough about them. There's a lot to talk about with the Scarecrow crew, and my dog is getting impatient. So we have the Scarecrow crew here, and I want to very gently bring Scarecrow front and center here. Now I'll talk about the colors I used just to get started here. I used the same colors for all of them because I wanted them to fit the theme, try and match up to the official paint job, and also kind of make them stand out, because half of them aren't real. Half of them are figments of the imagination of the enemy with the way the mechanics work for the game. So I wanted a very nightmarish quality to them, which means kind of unrealistic colors. So you're not really going to find grass or ground that's the color that I use, the Eldari Emerald, but it matches up to the official paint job. It does kind of create that spookiness factor of like a horrible graveyard, which is what the bases around them are themed. And it means for the bases that have Scarecrow's fear gas on it, i.e. his base and a few of the others can do, I kind of made some of the pumpkins on some of the bases leak it. That meant if I used a very bright green, like for instance, well, first of all I used the Necron Technical Paint. It's like a super bright neon green, and then I pulled it back down a little bit after that by doing a little bit of Striking Scorpion over the top of it. So in terms of colors, those were the two main colors. I would love to take you through how I painted Scarecrow's horse and tried to match up. I'm going to be very careful with how I hold it. How I matched up to the official paint job, but honestly it's a bit of a fever dream. I painted this 2 weeks ago now, because I'm recording this on Tuesday, and it was not yesterday but the Monday before that I painted him. And I had him sitting base coated, spray painted actually. I do that for the bigger bases. And I was just thinking, how on earth am I going to match this guy up to how he's officially painted? Because I love the official paint job and I want it to look as close to that as my limited skills can get. And I just kind of started and I just slapped paint on, and what I ended up with was what I think one of the better models I've ever painted. And I really liked how it looked. I still do, but I'm talking in the past tense because of what happened. During the assembly process, it did occur to me that in the official paint job, if you go look at it, he is modelled such that the horse only has one connecting point to the base, and it's this leg back there. So if he was kind of facing that way, it'd be front left. And that made him wobble something fierce. So I was like, I don't really want that. I don't want him wobbling like that. That's not great. And it also seemed like this clump of fear gas at the back here had a hollow for his back leg. So I was like, oh, maybe the official model just didn't see that. Or maybe they changed their mind about assembly after the fact because they saw how much he was wobbling. So I touched that or stuck it to that so you would have 2 points of contact to stop him wobbling as much. He still wobbled a little bit, just to be clear, but that seems safer to me overall. It was all for naught though, and his pose will have changed again. Like if you watch the very first video he previewed in, look how he looks in the start, watch maybe like 5 minutes in, and then hear about when disaster struck. He was relatively close to the edge of a table. I brushed against him, he fell off the table, twisted in the air so he was face down, landed on the floor, and surprisingly Scarecrow himself, the scythe, everything like up here, totally fine. Tail fell off, that's kind of be expected, it's not really stuck on there by much. But the surprising part was he broke off the base, and every leg except this one shattered. It just shattered into bits like, I don't know, like in a video game if you kill an enemy by freezing them and punch them. It was like that. It didn't bend, it didn't snap, it shattered. And someone did comment when I mentioned it in the video, oh hey, I've found that happening with this new resin Night Models is using as well. They did have a phase where it was probably too bendy and too malleable, which is what people didn't like, so they've gone back to something more akin to their 2nd edition resin, which does mean that it can snap, it doesn't just bend. And it's not exactly a heavy model, it doesn't weigh a lot, so it wasn't like it was crushed when it fell on the floor. I do wonder if the paint and or super glue makes a difference to the resin they're using, and it makes it almost crystal like so it shatters on impact. Either way though, in that video you will have heard me mention I tried my best to find every part of the legs that shattered and I couldn't. So I reassembled them as best I could, missing part of that back left leg that was his original main point of contact, basically ruining the model. The day after, I did finally find most or the biggest missing section of that leg, still missing some, so that is why he has been repositioned. Well, there's 2 reasons why he's been repositioned. One, because one of the horse legs is missing maybe like 3mm, so it couldn't be posed the way it was before, and the other reason is because this leg here, I decided to make a 3rd point of contact. So this is a fear cloud that doesn't actually exist on the official model. This is actually blue tack, believe it or not. That is just blue tack that I've painted to look like the fear gas. I also added some blue tack on the leg back there to try and hold it in place more, and then super glued it there as well, just again to have this extra point of contact, just try and make sure it holds in place. I love the miniature. I was super pleased with the paint job I did on it, and I was so heartbroken. Like honestly, it felt like it was falling in slow motion when I saw it tip. And I just kind of reached for it, and it was like Darth Vader shouting no when it fell. And as bad as that was, when I then saw that it wasn't just a case of, oh, it broke, because it's like, oh, you can just super glue it back together. To see that it shattered, and I was missing all these tiny, tiny, tiny bits, knowing in the back of my head, I'm never getting this back to how it looked. That was heartbreaking. And it really shouldn't snap like that and shatter like the way it did. But nevertheless, it is now back together. I actually kind of think it might look better with the additional points of contact. It looks like he's charging forwards. It's really cool. It is my favourite model they've done for ages, and with the whole crew, I love the aesthetic. I'm going to have to still be exceptionally fragile, or treat it like it's exceptionally fragile, because I don't want, if it snaps again, I don't think there's any coming back from that with the damage that's already been done to it. But I love the model. And it's not their fault that I broke it. It's not their fault that I accidentally knocked it off the table during recording. It just happened. But it is strange that their resin no longer Their new resin, that is, no longer bends. This feels like their second edition stuff that just snapped. That could just snap under the slightest pressure and it breaks. So like katanas, gun barrels, that kind of thing. Like you just have to accept at some point they will break. My Damian Wayne, I keep on mentioning him ever so often in battle reports. Like anytime I use him, I'm surprised his katanas haven't broken yet. One of them actually has now. I don't think I've ever mentioned that. Repaired it, but that's old second edition resin, and that just snaps. Alright, let's talk about the rest of the crew. Starting with the unfortunate things, actually. During my unboxing, I spotted that I unfortunately got a miscast on my Dr. Fright here. She is meant to be holding up a vial or a beaker of something, presumably fear liquid, I don't know. But I got a misshapen hand, it's missing the actual wrist, it's missing the bottle she was holding. So the tedium of trying to get that from Night Models, it just isn't worth it. So I decided to make it kind of look like it's not really there, like kind of imply that it's kind of spooky, that maybe she's not real, because she is an Intel support character, so she's not really on the table anyway. So I decided to just do that with a little bit of using the Striking Scorpion green, mixing that in on her while she was kind of drying, just to create that kind of spooky apparition look. No, I don't think that's a great solution, but I think it's a solution as opposed to just having her not have a hand. It is unfortunate. Like this crew, I was so looking forward to it and ended up being incredibly cursed. Like me dropping Scarecrow, which again is my fault. This being a miscast, which is their fault. And also, which I didn't notice during the unboxing, but I did put in a sticky comment afterwards. My poor Fear Beast, my giant tree monster that isn't real. I don't know if anyone noticed this in the battle report, because I didn't specifically point it out, but he has 2 right hands. Because I didn't notice during the unboxing either. You can go back and see though, the proof is there. He came with 2 right hands and no left hand. So I noticed that during assembly, and I love this model as well, for the record. And I was like, well, what do you do? Do I model him with 1 hand? Do I try and chase up getting his left hand? And I thought, screw it, that's too much work. It genuinely feels like work and pulling teeth to get anything from Night Models, especially when they seem to have an active contempt for me. So I thought, screw it, I'll just turn it upside down, stick it on, kind of angle it different, and see if anyone notices. I don't think anyone did, to be fair. And if I desperately wanted to make it look like a different hand, I could chop off the thumb, cut off the hand, turn it upside down, glue it on that way. But in general, it's meant to be a nightmare beast, it's not real, it's meant to look kind of freakish. So I feel like it doesn't matter too much that he's got 2 right hands. It is annoying though, but either way. I used the same colours as on Scarecrow, the Eldari Emerald, that's Wildwood mostly. Oh, actually no, sorry, that's the orc named Sur for his bark, with a little bit of Militarum green for the moss, a little bit of the Striking Scorpion green as the slime. I went with that theme. Like if you look, I posted a picture of some of these on Twitter, and I originally went with a yellow kind of glow coming from all the pumpkins and whatnot. I settled on doing green because it fits the colour that I've been using for the Fear Gas Morse, and they are Fear Gas Nightmares. So actually we'll just we'll cover the Fear Nightmares first. So I went back and just applied the green instead. I really like the Scarecrow one. I had no idea how to assemble them when I opened the unboxing, but I got there in the end. Hopefully the auto zoom will as well. There we go. So this one actually is probably my favourite of the bunch. It is a bit confusing having a Scarecrow-like nightmare in a Scarecrow crew and then having to talk about it, but that's fine. I used Volupus Pink for this guy's limbs to try and match up. It's a bit too dark compared to the official Paint Jobs colour. It would have been better to use a paler colour. This is the Nightmare of Anger. I remember that because he's kind of swole. He kind of, actually, now that I see him, he looks like the prison boss in Dark Souls 2. Just in terms of body shape, I mean, not in terms of colours. I've forgotten what they're called, but this something Sinner, something like that. This is the one that's doing Hamlet. I wonder if the autofocus is having trouble because it is so colourful in the background. Like, I'm just looking at it there. This is one of the more colourful lineups of models I've ever had to talk about. Like, just look at the array of colours back there. No wonder it's getting confused. And then this last one, I think, is the Nightmare of Insignificance. That one was Demovation. This one is Insignificance. Although he is actually, ironically, significant because he is the only Nightmare who has a ranged attack. And it's a good ranged attack as well. Freakishly long hands on this one. Yeah, and I love pumpkin designs, I love scythes, I love kind of like the Halloween look, the pumpkins everywhere. Really great stuff. It is just a shame that it was so incredibly cursed. Well, let's wrap this one up by talking about the Arkham staff and their boss Hugo Strange. Hugo Strange is an optional free agent that you can use instead of Scarecrow to get up to the 350 rep required to field a Scarecrow crew. I did him last. I did the Arkham assistants, they're called, first. They kind of remind me of like a very Tim Burton-y look. Not specifically from the Tim Burton Batmans, I just mean like the Tim Burton look. Like, they would not look out of place in Nightmare Before Christmas, is what I'm meaning. So this is the pudgy lady with the electric shock pads. That is... See, I did originally just use Soul Blight on top of the white paint for their gowns, like I did for Emma Frost at the start there. I didn't like how clean it looked, so then I went over it with non-oil. And that's why they look a little bit muckier. Because they're not meant to be nice, they're doing like lobotomies and stuff. And this guy's got like a pole that grabs people by the throat. So, I just like how freakish he looks as well with the way he's standing. And, well, once it comes into focus, I hope you'll see as well. There we go. Like, he's just standing with his feet together and he looks all lanky and he's got this weird long grey hair and the thing that grabs your neck. Like, they're not nice orderlies. They're bad. But for Hugo Strange, he's a bit of a clean freak, I feel. So for him, I did just use Soul Blight. Basilicanum Grey for his trousers and a mixture of Black Templar and Black Legion contrasts for his shoes and leather gloves, latex, whatever it's made of, rubber gloves. And I didn't really pick out his weird glasses, you know, those glasses that just sit on your eyes. They don't have the things that hang on your ears. But either way, I was tempted to not do his base like the Scarecrow crew because he isn't technically part of the Scarecrow crew. He can be in any crew except Batman. So he isn't necessarily tied to them, but he has pumpkins on his base, so I ended up going with that. And he dabbles in like mind control and fear and stuff like that as well. Like, he does have a place with this crew for sure, so but that's not the only place he necessarily needs to be. He could be of use to quite a few other crews, I think. Especially potentially organised crime, just because of some of the roles he has. But we're not here to talk about that. But this is also like him and Emma Frost I actually painted on the same day. So I was just painting a load of white cloaks and such, and not doing a good job on any of them, but that's okay because they are done now. Scarecrow crew, by the time you hear this, I think you will have seen only one of their battle reports. There is another one. So I expect to see a lot of them because I love the crew. I will probably limit it slightly because my opinion of them so far is that they are far too powerful. But that might be because they're based on a rule set that isn't quite implemented yet regarding rules for objective decks. Won't bore you with that here if you're not interested in the Batman miniature game. I cover that in the second Scarecrow battle report at the end. I blathered on for a long time. So look for that. Next time, when we come back in a couple of weeks, I am working on trying to get half of the Imperial Nobility team done from the 2020 starter set for Blood Bowl. Or last time I showed you Griff Overwald and the Ogre. I've assembled half of them. I don't want to assemble all of them because that makes it seem like too daunting a task. So I've just assembled 6 of them and I want to get started painting those. I probably am going to tackle painting my hunters for Monster Hunter the board game. As for tackling the monsters themselves, I don't know, they're so huge and you'd have to go through so many of them. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to, especially because I don't intend to display them. I am going to have to store them in the boxes, but we'll see about that. I do have some more Batman stuff to get through as well, some of the older releases. Beyond that, I feel like I'm forgetting something, but honestly that's a good thing because that means it'll be a surprise. If you want to show me what you've been painting, feel free to do so on Twitter. I link it below in the description box every video. Doesn't matter if it's a game I play or not, I don't mind. I just like seeing people's painting work. And on that note, I hope this has inspired you to get through your pile of grey shame. Look at how I can't get over how like colourful this pile of models looks compared to usual. But yeah, it doesn't matter how well you paint as long as you enjoy the process. I personally find it very calming. Anyway, thank you for watching though, and I hope to see you again in about 2 weeks for another update. Until then, it's ta for now.